happy employees, make a happier workplace, and more productive people.
Yeah.
We're not losing productivity. We're actually gaining productivity when people are having better lives. And like I said, we encourage that within our business. Come in, do great work, then go out and live your life. Your family's important. Go be with your family. Go do those things that you need to do.
Welcome back to the TrustBuilt Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Bennett, and today we've got a different episode. We're still going to talk about trust. Well, we're going to get there eventually. But today we've got Beth and Stacey are back on again. That y'all have seen them before. We talked, was that 6 months ago or maybe a little longer, but they've been on before, and we talked about entrepreneurship. We talked about trust. But today I'm going to give them a project.
Uh-oh, we're ready.
We can do this.
So to remind everybody exactly the work that you do and your company, talk a little bit about what that is. Remind them of who you are again.
Okay, well, I'm Stacey Bankston, and I am a licensed clinical social worker, so I'm a therapist. And together, Beth and I own Creative Counseling Center of NWA here in Bentonville.
So now, here we're going to get to it. We're going to start with a project. I'm going to get right to it.
Uh-oh, okay.
I'm going to get to a project. I need help with this. I need some insight, and this is trust, right? So it's in the exit planning world. So that's my umbrella of how do we develop a business that's sellable? How do we create value in a business? And the people will hire me to come in and assess the business. What's it worth? What can it be worth? How do we get there, right? That's kind of the overview. And twice in the last couple of months, I've sat down and there's been a husband and wife. We sit down and go through the talk, like what's the business worth? And either the wife, one was a wife with a husband that was involved, and the other was a husband with a wife involved, right? So the one's a primary and one's a supporting role. And in both of those times, when we have talked about the due diligence of the business, like, tell me a little bit more about this. And I start digging into what's going on within the business. Both times, whether the husband was the primary or the support person in the business, the husband's like, wait a minute, you're going to tell him that? There was oversharing going on.
Like you're telling trade secrets.
The vulnerability, right? So
yes.
Help me help them. How shed some light on that. What's going on with would the wife be willing to overshare in his words? What is that? What's going on with that?
Well, first, I think it's important to understand the many variables that contribute to that very outcome. And my first go-to is that is societal. That is a core message received early on, where men will often in Western society find vulnerability as weakness. That's the message received. I don't think that's organic necessarily. I think that is nurtured. And then that's affirmed over and over and over. And then those little boys grow up into men who still see a disconnect between themselves and their emotional vulnerability. Lots of other variables.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Familial influences.
Absolutely. The things that, sometimes it's not even, what is said within a home as a little boy is growing up. It's more of this is, this behavior's been modeled for us. And so we understand that this is the way that we're supposed to, think and act. And we, and they may draw conclusions based on, whatever they see in the home. They may not see that the husband may be vulnerable with the wife behind closed doors, and they may have those more intimate conversations because it's not modeled for them. And so with it not being modeled for them, then they have to draw their own conclusions on what those relationships and conversations and those interactions look like.
Well, and there's good literature that backs that up, that if I receive messages in childhood And though that is all I know. So that's been normalized for me. Communicated verbally or not. Those will be affirmed over and over again. And in that, we will then navigate to what is familiar to us. And so we'll create relationships that might mirror what was modeled for us or what we experienced. And then the data suggests, and this blows my mind every time, that in that familiarity, we find safety. So it doesn't mean that we have to like that process. It doesn't mean that we like to be emotionally reserved. It doesn't mean that we like to see emotions as weak. It just means we know how to navigate that. And so we will recreate those dynamics over and over again.
Even if they're toxic.
Even if they're toxic.
Oh, that's interesting.
We don't have to like it. We just have to know how to navigate it. And so I think because as a whole, men are sent messages, whether they are sat down and told not to cry on the ball field, if they're told to suck it up, if they're, we are...
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
I mean,
rub some dirt in it.
Absolutely.
Which is not
rub some dirt in
exclusive.
it, walk it off.
It's not exclusive to the male experience. I mean, we often talk about as Gen Xers, we were taught by our baby boomer parents a very strong work ethic. But in that message also, is it so extreme that we didn't even know when to take a break, or we didn't know when to leave an environment that was unhealthy out of loyalty? I mean, there are lots of messages that we receive. And so while it's normalized for women to be able to explore, normalize their emotions, their male counterpart is taught otherwise.
In both of those situations, what I have found out, so I'm still engaged with them, right? And the work that it continues. What I'm finding is it's not only that they are hesitant to share with me. What I find, and this is my specific work, is how to bring on partners that fit with us, and how to bring on team members, whether they're employees or managers or whatever, that fit the culture, that fit what's going on. In both of those situations, what I have found is when they say, oh, we're transparent, we've got a great culture, we do company picnics, as I dig in there, it's not good. There's high turnover. Oh, it's just the industry we're in. And I'm linking it, I'm starting to figure this out, that there's a source there. And I think that the owner who thinks that they're being transparent, they think that they've got good culture, is not so. There's withholding that's going on. And I'm using this, as an example that I find fascinating to me, that they don't even do it with people that, would be called family or work family or whatever.
Well, and it's interesting if they are operating under an assumption, but their outcomes counter that assumption, there's a disconnect. Why do they not understand that disconnect? It could be that they've given themselves permission to be just enough involved or exposed just so much. And what we've found that has worked for us for our contracted providers and one another is that disclosure, exposure, vulnerability, transparency has won every time for us.
Absolutely.
Every time. When we've had to learn something and we thought we were doing things beautifully, and then come to find out there's another way or another process, or we should be doing something differently or additional, we don't hide that. There's honesty there. We also understand that we experience imposter syndrome like everyone does. We are constantly doubting ourselves. We are humbled in what we don't know. And we've had to learn that transparency and honesty does not mean that we're purging our sins. It doesn't mean we're at confessional with the providers that work with us. It means that we're sharing
Sometimes
our growth.
We have to be, though.
There's ownership. Ownership is huge.
Ownership is huge. And I think
ownership isn't scary.
No, because it's accountability.
Yeah.
And I think
It used to be scary for me.
It used to be scary.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because, then, that accountability is like, okay, if they see all the flaws, if they see what goes on behind the curtain, then, is that going to freak them out? Are they going to run away? Are they going to think that there's something that's going on that's not stable? And so, does that give them less confidence in our company and who we are as people? And actually what we found, I think, is that it's actually strengthened their understanding of what we do and who we are as people. And it also gives us, there's a level of respect there because we're also owning things by taking that accountability in times where we're like, man, I was supposed to do something and man, I did not get to that today. I'm so sorry, but I'm owning that that this is what I did. And then I'm going to fix this.
Mhm.
And then what it does is it builds safety in those relationships. And safety, I think, is going to be the foundation for that vulnerability, that perhaps if we take the time to build those connections in a genuine way and create that safety amongst one another, when we do hit bumps, then we're going to be able to pull from that reserve that we've built together. That's actually, I'm pulling that right from attachment style theory of therapy, that if you have a secure attachment with another person, it's because we've mutually invested into that, dropped coins into that bucket mutually, so that when we hit a bump, not if, but when, then we'll be able to pull from that and we're going to be able to navigate through those bumps. That's safety.
This is interesting. I did not see accountability coming into this conversation like this. This is, and I'm listening, but I'm actively listening because I'm like, oh, that's it in through the lens of accountability. Because when I talk about accountability, the business owners tend to have a defensive, it's like it's got a negative connotation. But if I were to say, hey, I want you to be my accountability partner, we're going to start going to the gym twice a week or three or whatever it is, that accountability verbiage is friendly and warm and welcoming. But when you use accountability in the business setting, we're like, it's like you got a club in your hand going,
well, it sounds legal. If you think about that, that legality risky. Of, it is risky. If I take accountability for something, then that there mean that I'm guilty of something, and then does that put me in a risky space of liability?
Well, you see me as less than, but in a therapy situation, what would we name there? Probably fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. Why wouldn't we have the same philosophy in the workplace or in a professional setting? Why does this feel so risky for me? Being vulnerable, being honest, having transparency, holding myself accountable, holding one another accountable in a way that promotes safety and solidarity, not in a way that creates an environment of strife or discord. Or character attacks.
And we do the accountability. I mean, I think in any partnership, whether it's husband, wife, or I've often said she is very much my office significant other, because she is. But she's also my accountability partner in the things that even within the business and the tasks and whatever is happening, we hold each other accountable to things because we need that.
And we see it though as part of the partnership. We don't see it as something to shy away from. We don't see it as, and I will tell you that I don't know that was organic for either of us coming into it, because unfortunately, relationships with women in the workplace, I believe, have been set up from society and other influences to become almost a dog-eat-dog. And so
very competitive.
We're going against the grain, we're running uphill, as a baseline as women in a profession. And so to have another woman beside you could be seen as threatening and or competition.
Yeah.
And so absolutely. I think we had to create safety with one another. Not that we ever saw one another as competition. We didn't. No. We just didn't know how to have that fluid secure, healthy dialogue that didn't feel threatening.
Yeah.
Even if the intent was never there, I think women in our society have not been taught to value that the connection that we can have organically outside of the workplace, within reason, can absolutely be recreated in the workplace.
Absolutely.
And it's what built safety for us. And when, among a lot of other variables, like compassion for one another, like being seen, like being able to check in, and because we know that something has shifted, something looks different, the presentation, the energy, that goes a long way when you're trying to fake it till you make it, or when you don't feel as though you know where the energy is going to come from, or that maybe you don't even have insight that you need a break. But because there's such a connection there that's genuine, we can support one another in whatever direction we need.
And that trust leads to authenticity, I think, as well, too. So you can, have more, you have the space to be more authentic with someone as you've developed that trust, with someone. And so...
And it does take courage. So for your clients that you're seeing, it does take courage. Brene Brown is a renowned social worker in Houston who's done an enormous amount of research on vulnerability, shame, and connection. And she has great one-liners that speak to building trust with one another, which leads to vulnerability and then connection. And she says to lean into the distress. So right out of the gate, we're normalizing that it feels risky, could feel scary. Lots of reasons why. Normal human experience. Can we lean into that because we see the value that safety will be built when you validate the concern and then we lean into that anyway? You're going to be building instant, potentially, safety with your clients who may feel as though they are able to disclose information that once sounded really scary to them.
I find in the work that I do, I find the barrier to trust is around purpose and accountability. That's kind of you got to get over those hurdles, and not necessarily one then the other. They're kind of, to me, they're more like a foundational barrier. And without purpose and accountability, I find trust doesn't even stand a chance. And so I know I'm introducing purpose. We haven't talked about that one yet. But I want to stay in that accountability vein with accountability. In the context of which we're talking here, I think there's the partnership. Like let's take the two of you, right? There's partners, and then you've got basically contractors, right? The 1099s, and then you've got some employees. And in your business, and I'll just use an example, but there's other businesses that have similar type of situation, whether they're in the landscaping business or whatever it is, they run into that. And the relationship, is it like children and stepchildren? Is it? I mean, I'm just trying to think of a context that people might be familiar with when you're trying to build relationships with people who support the organization, but in maybe different ways. What does that look like?
For us, it looks like, and I can only speak for us, but I think for us, it looks like peers. We don't. We're very careful about making sure, especially since they are contractors, that they understand that we're also peers. We're all doing the same things. We have our own caseloads as well. And so we're doing therapy. They're doing therapy. We don't introduce this hierarchy of we're the boss and
leadership and staff
and all of that. Of course, we lead by example, and so I'm going to get in and do the same thing that they're doing. So there's a lot of that we stress a lot of the peer relationship, so they don't feel that disconnect between us, and they can come to us as peers and talk, and we're just talking. Yes, we're the ones that write the checks every week, but that's not the goal of having those relationships with them. And that does start with we're just all therapists here trying to do good work for our clients and, getting through the day like everyone else.
I think that setup, which has worked so well for our clinic, allows everyone to have true autonomy. Nothing is manufactured. So what they provide to our clients is from their private practice, and we have our own private practices, and we're all coming to work, hopefully just to do a really good job and provide really good therapeutic support, and then go and live the rest of our lives. I don't know if that can happen in an agency work, which we've come from many, many years and decades of agency work. I don't know if you can have that true autonomy and ownership over your schedule and ownership over how you work and when you work. That's really worked really well. And I think it attracts just the right person that will be a good fit for that model. And so I think it's going to naturally it's not for everyone. The way in which we all work, it's very independent. You have to be extremely self-sufficient. You own your own business. We contract with that business. This is you have to have a lot of thought and a lot of structure put into your own private practice. If that is what you're looking for, we're definitely your persons. If someone needs a little more
guidance,
support, administrative support, what have you, then that might not be the right environment for you, and that's okay. That does just mean, though, that we'll tend to attract the type of contractor that is intended to thrive in that environment, and then they do, and then
people weed themselves in. Yeah, and they weed themselves in or they weed themselves out, and that's kind of a short way of, for me, of saying that.
And it's not personal, and it's okay.
Not at all.
And we want people to come in and feel that it's a good fit and that it works for their life. And if it does, wonderful. And we're going to make sure that we continue to do things that keep that environment attractive for someone, because we both know statistically, from our work in the past with facilities and agencies, that a full clinic is always going to run smoother.
Absolutely.
And we don't want the revolving door of staff, because that's exhausting and could potentially be a reflection that things aren't running as smoothly as we would want them to.
And you want to definitely, if you do have a revolving door like that, you definitely want to get down into the culture of what's going on. The why. Why are people coming in and out? And allowing people to be, open and honest about what's working and what's not. And I think that we open that door. We're very human with each other, within our business, with our clients, as just as much as we are with our contractors. And so I think that they very much see us in the way that we are. But we also invite and open those conversations. Is everything working well? If it's not, tell us what you need or how it, you look at it and how can it work better. Let's work together to figure out how it can work better, because we certainly want to make it advantageous for them to want to stay.
Yeah.
And if a culture shift needs to happen, and if you have the revolving door, you're not going to be able to bring about change unless you ask the people who are experiencing it. So there has to be, you have to, and it requires bravery, I think, because you have to be willing to hear that the baby you created that you're so proud of, that there could be kinks or flaws or areas needing improvement. And while, your first inclination is to personalize that, if I'm so grateful we have backgrounds where systemic processes, that's our forte. But it's because we're pulling it from our social work background and experience too. If you think about how we view people, a client who is in the center is influenced and impacted by all the various systems in their lives. we would never discount the influences of those systems. Why would we discount them in the workplace that we've created? We have to be able to receive feedback from the people who experience those in order to bring about more positive change if needed. If it's working well, we want to know.
This is interesting because I'm thinking in the business world lens, this is alignment. We're talking alignment within the organization. Are we aligned in what we're doing? One of the tools that I use when I assess businesses is an alignment tool, and it breaks it down into 5 categories. And especially when I talk to partnerships can be very, very tricky, right? Because,
yes.
There's like 3 main buckets, 3 big buckets that I look at. One of them is, are we customer focused like Disney, right? Are we more like a Disney type company where we're heavily focused on customer experience?
Service excellence.
Or are we, service excellence would be more like a Walmart, more about the operational part of it, and so there's different kind of buckets. And each business has some of all of these buckets. So there's the innovative, like Apple, right? So those are the 3 buckets. So you've got are we innovative focused? Not that we're not customer focused, but is our main innovation? Is it more about the customer experience? Is it more about operational excellence? And getting, like, if there's multiple partners, they would all rank them in different, like, what is top, what is second, what is third. And that's the first thing I do is who are the partners or who are the main leaders in here and how do they see it? And what you're talking about is helping me. I mean, just selfish, but this is helping me when it's misaligned. How do we unpack that? And that's what you were just talking about, is how to unpack that and figure out, where is this misalignment? What's the root behind that misalignment?
And if you think about what you just described, we're pulling from our therapeutic knowledge. We're running this business based on the skills and the knowledge that we try to share in the therapy experience. If you are saying something and your actions don't align, it's incongruent. In a therapy session, we're going to try to highlight that and then explore and get curious about why is that incongruent. So I think we really do pull, consciously or subconsciously,
probably both,
from our clinical skill set, and then we've incorporated that into running the business, and it's working. So it's not traditional per se in Western society and business models, but it's working. Brené Brown, I think she discovered that when she was doing her research, and then began to implement that research into the corporate world. And then she wrote a book called Daring to Lead. So she's using the concept of vulnerability, connection, safety, empathy, and bringing that into the workplace as it relates to leadership and connecting with the people that you work with. This is not the standard verbiage that's being used when taught about how to successfully run a business. But I think it's time that we start getting curious about a shift in the type of verbiage we're using, and then begin implementing that in the workplace. I think we've seen it successful in our clinic. It makes me very curious if we all began incorporating these concepts on a larger scale.
It's very interesting that you talked about it, and we were talking a little bit about attachment theory, and what I've noticed, and I think Beth would agree with this, is that you're talking about the husband and wife dynamic being partners in the business and everything, and honey, don't, are you telling too much?
Yeah.
And that vulnerability. Being too vulnerable, because if I tell you, if I give you all the information, then you're going to turn it around. You're going to hurt me with it. You're going to, so it kind of is like, we don't need to share all of our trade secrets because somebody's going to take that, and they're either going to take it for their, to be advantageous for them, or they're going to take it and turn it and use it against you in some way. And I think it's the same way as a lot of people when you deal with things like anytime that I feel ashamed or inadequate, then I'm going to run back. I'm going to pull back. I'm going to avoid. Vulnerability isn't going to be, so I think isn't going to be strong. So I think wanting to, like, being able to confront within yourself, at times where there are times I feel inadequate as a leader or as a partner, sometimes even as, a social worker, just depending on, because I think everyone feels that, even within their own daily life, sometimes I'm not showing up the way I want to. But if I can, like, open that up with myself honestly, have some conversation. Sometimes I'll come to her and go, I'm really failing at this week. I'm struggling. I'm not, we're able to have those conversations, and, I don't, and then I can jump in the shame bucket for a little bit, and then I jump right back out.
And we don't rescue one another in that.
No.
Potentially sometimes if it gets a little too much. But I think what we do is and this is where empathy comes into place, because we recognize that as a real human experience. And because business ownership will tap into every single insecurity you have and
possibly have,
and some you didn't know you had, and because we know that we both know one another well enough, we know we want to do a good job, we know that we want
we understand
to do a great job,
intent,
we know, and so we'll sit with one another, not having to clean that up.
Yep,
that's empathy. Acknowledging that that's a real human experience, and sometimes that's all the other person needs. Just let me do this whole piece. Let me have my moment. Let me acknowledge what's going on. Talk out loud if needed, and then oftentimes that will be enough.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to say, "You good there? What's going on? Have you beaten yourself up good enough? Or do you need a little more time?" So we'll gently.
It's kind of accountability in that too.
It is
a little bit,
because it allows us though to reset, and it allows us to be able to come back together, validate whatever might be occurring in that person's lives. It might be work related, it might not be, and then we remind one another quickly that they are important. Whatever's going on matters. We've got this. And then be able to get back into the game.
It's like reminding each other of what our purpose is.
Yeah.
At times.
And that we're not alone.
Yeah.
That we're not alone.
So in this last few minutes of talking, both of you have said something that triggered a word in my mind, and I'm not sure if it's a valid word. Scarcity. If you win, I lose type of mindset. I run into that, or at least I think I run into that. But after hearing this, I'm like, was it really scarcity mindset, or was it something else? Now I'm second guessing the conclusion that I had around their mindset. Maybe not the scarcity. I don't know.
What do you think?
Yeah,
in therapy, we would say, let's get curious.
Yeah, let's get curious. Why scarcity? Why is
and if not scarcity, then maybe what else?
Yeah.
Well, the vulnerability that Stacey, you were talking about earlier, and I referenced it, with the husband, right? Where you're not going to share that. My thought is sharing is if you know something more than what I think you should know, that means I lose. That's the context of scarcity that I was thinking. But now, after sitting through this, I'm like, maybe I wasn't necessarily off target, but maybe I wasn't in the red zone, right?
Maybe I don't want to look inadequate.
Maybe it's more that than it is.
If you know more than I know, then I'm going to feel inadequate in what I'm doing. And it's a falsehood, by the way, because just because somebody has different knowledge than I have doesn't mean that my knowledge, it lessens anything with me or what I know or what I bring to the table. But I think sometimes that, even like you were talking about the competitiveness, especially that we've experienced as women, if I think that somebody can get a one-up on me.
Yeah.
I would...
Then that can be a scary place.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking out loud about that, in my curiosity, which I've learned to be the catalyst for flexible thinking and flexible outcomes, I would ask, okay, let me ask you guys real quick. What is it about sharing that information that causes pause for you?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to build safety potentially. I think it's an opportunity to say we can talk about the challenging things or the hard things, and then potentially use whatever the information is that they're hesitant to divulge to demonstrate that you can have that information and we can actually continue to use it together to accomplish the goals at hand. I would get curious and ask what the reservation is. And then I don't have to assume. And it's not my responsibility to figure that out or to clean that up, but I can invite them to have a conversation with me, because if it doesn't show up there, it might show up down the road in that relationship.
It'll show up somewhere.
We probably need to address it.
Yeah.
Probably need to address it. And so I would just get really curious and then normalize that it's okay to feel those feelings around the reservation, and we can still have a conversation about the reservation. And it's a very human experience and it's a very normal experience. So maybe the normalization of it, thus building the safety, thus creating the trust.
That's a very strong case for leadership. Doing just that. That's a big ask, but I think it's a correct ask. I think you're spot on. I guess that's what I'm saying. I think you're spot on, but that's a big one.
And I'll tell you who demonstrates this for me personally. Greg Boyle is the executive director of Homeboy Industries in LA. And it's one of the largest gang intervention and reentry programs in the nation, possibly the world. Father Greg, Father G, for those who know him, and I do not. I wish I did. He's a voice I can hear. He's a voice I can listen to. And he talks about kinship. Kinship. Yes, leadership. I think we have emphasized kinship in our clinic because it's us. It's humans sitting with humans, humans working with humans. It's me and you. It's not the haves and the have-nots. It's not
you versus me.
It's not I'm here and you're there. It's us. It's kinship. And he's utilized kinship as a tool to not only create connection, but to bring down walls between some of the most contentious groups of people and communities.
Absolutely.
With rival gang members now working side by side, together, collaborating, caring for one another. This is impossible if you use other models.
Rather than being conflict.
Kinship.
I love Carl Jung, and he's one of my very favorites of all within social work. And he really just draws everything from a very human perspective, which is, I'm just going to be extremely human with you.
It makes me wonder if we're making leadership and entrepreneurship too difficult when we try to add so many layers of models. And I wonder if we strip some of that away back down to the basics where we had human experiences with one another, if we were then able to build that safety and that trust so that we could have those vulnerable moments. I'm now beginning to think that we really do need to create a business model based on social work principles that have been tried and true for more than 100 years. It's effective and it's working.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting. A few months back, I did a seminar about suicide prevention, and I was doing that within the workplace. And a lot of the companies that were coming in, these were different, various companies, but construction companies. And so there was a definite leader versus employee type of mentality. And so when I was talking about that, this is the very thing that I was talking about with this entire group is, of course, as you know, and the supervisors were saying, well, how do I identify somebody who might, be having issues or having problems? And I'm like, you need to, first of all, get down from here, connect with them here, and that's just, hey, bud, I've noticed, that maybe you've not really been talking or sitting with the person that you usually sit with at lunch.
How are you?
How are things going? How are you doing?
That's being seen.
Absolutely.
It's being seen.
And so at that point, I'm not your boss. I'm just another human being getting on a very human level with you and just checking in. How's it going? And so, yes, there's going to be that fear of being vulnerable, because if I let my boss know that I'm struggling at home, there's, the light bill is about ready to be turned off, or something's going on, or that I'm having problems with my spouse or whatever. If I let them see me, then what is the consequence of that? What's the backlash of that? And I think that in leadership, we have to look at that and go, we have to take away that barrier so that I'm just looking at you. We're just having a conversation as a human being. Because I'll tell you what, and any leader knows this, happy employees make a happier workplace and more productive people.
Yeah.
We're not losing productivity. We're actually gaining productivity when people are having better lives. And like I said, we encourage that within our business. Come in, do great work, then go out and live your life. Your family's important. Go be with your family. Go do those things that you need to do. But, we also, if they're coming in and there's things that are different and there's a shift, we're not both pulling them aside. We're just, each one of us, they might have an open door and we're going, hey, how's it going? How you been? How are the kids? How's things? I really am interested. Because if they are struggling, then I know that that's going to show up too. For not only for them, but within our business. And so being good leaders, I think it is also modeling the kind of things that I would want when I go to work somewhere.
I had a guest on, it's not been out yet, but I had a guest on that is in the game. His company creates video games, right? And he talked about the typical company that does what he does. It takes anywhere from 3 to 7 years to develop a game.
Wow.
Long time. And the way he described his company was just exactly what you were talking about. That is what they do. They do 4-day work weeks, which is unheard of in computer science world, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what they are in that space. In IT, computer science. So those people typically don't connect as well, right? They're very analytical. They're task-oriented, that kind of thing. But he described an environment that was very much what you just described. He told me the last game that they put together, 18 months. 18 months, and he said other companies, it takes basically 5 years to put it together. So what you're talking about is productivity and stress and getting things to market. He's blowing the doors off. Now the word's getting out with his company that they, if you want it done quick, that's who you call. And it's all based on what you just said right there. Yeah.
I think
and that's a game company.
I think it demonstrates, though, that if you see people as more than just what they can provide you or your company, and you see them as moms, dads, children of aging parents, human with real human experiences, emotions, off days,
stressors,
life things, then that gives you an opportunity in a really genuine way to check in and build safety there, where perhaps they can honestly answer if they are okay or if they are not. We don't have to rush in and be the solution, but we can provide support, encouragement, and an open door if needed. But to be seen sometimes
seen and
is
heard.
enough.
Absolutely.
That someone didn't just walk by and ignore what I was putting out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just enough. And I wonder if leaders fear that the vulnerability in that is going to create some discount of their abilities, or if it won't cause their staff to wonder if they're soft or weak or incapable. And so they have to put out this exterior front that they're strong or that they're courageous. And
what you're talking about is exactly what I was taught when I first became a clinical director of a adolescent substance abuse facility. One of the first things I was taught is, you're second in command. You don't go to lunch with, your substance abuse counselors. You don't go to lunch with your therapist. You maintain this disconnect, because if not, they won't have respect for you. And my first thing as a social worker is actually that's the opposite of what I've ever been taught. And that goes against everything I feel even as a human being, which is I think they see me and more as a human. And because of that, they actually have more respect for me and, in my leadership and what I model for them. Yeah. So, but they see me as human. I think our contractors, they see us as very human moms. We're moms first. We were running kids to, band practice and games and events and, choir practices and different things. But, we came in first, not being like, oh, well, we're the business owners of this company. First, we're first and foremost moms, wives, sisters, daughters. We both had aging parents at the same time that we were both caring for. That, ate up a lot of time and energy. And we had, and there was a lot of things that we went through during that time. But I think it allowed them to see a side of us that, does need to be seen, that humanistic side.
And if we're staying with the same pulling from our social work skills and principles, we've had so many conversations that might be unorthodox for someone coming right out of grad school who has been taught to never disclose anything. It's going to become about you. That's inappropriate. It's unethical, what have you. We've had so many conversations about how when we stripped off what we were told and in an appropriate way, validating another human being's experience by saying, I see that, when I went through that, I often whatever it's related to. The shift that can happen in that therapeutic working relationship when you show up so human and giving another person permission to also be human and not feel judged, that somehow this therapist has it all together over there and is looking down at me. That's so actually also kinship. It's professional kinship.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It doesn't allow it to get loose. We don't sway from our...
Well, I'm not diving into the details of what happened to me during my experience. We're just saying...
Allowing another human to see that
me too.
I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And there's safety in that. And then...
Less isolating.
And why wouldn't we incorporate those effective interpersonal relationship skills into the workplace too? If they can be effective and they can be utilized correctly, then you're going to create the culture that people aren't running from. You'll create the culture where
they'll run to it.
Absolutely. And thereby increasing your productivity, increasing the happiness of people are happy if they're happy to go to work.
Yeah.
I had a job that I loved. I was happy to go to work. The culture was great. I felt safe in it. And so I stayed longer because I did. Those cultures that you don't feel safe in, that you can't be human with somebody, there is this disconnect, are places that people don't stay.
We actually met in an environment where it did not breed safety, trust, authenticity.
Absolutely. Not at all.
It was very professional, and it was great reputation and good work being done there. But out of that became a conversation around if we had an opportunity, this is what we would create. This is the environment that we would have. This is how staff could operate. This is hopefully what clients would be able to experience. And then we went and we did it.
And we created it.
And there's that continuity is there. What we truly wanted the experience to be, we believe we've achieved that. Did it roll out smoothly right off the bat? Of course not. But we learned and then we changed. And then we get feedback from clients as well. We ask for it.
And we're ever flowing and changing.
There's vulnerability in trying to get the feedback to bring about positive change.
It sure is.
Really.
The key is vulnerability.
Yeah.
He
To
is
trust and
very much
safety.
vulnerability.
Yeah, I feel like we're sitting around a campfire and I'm about to throw another log on the fire. But I need to wrap it up.
Sure.
But I'm going to preface that by saying I'm not done yet. This will be the second chapter.
To be continued.
To be continued.
To be
because
continued.
what we're talking about here is not only real interpersonal between the individuals, but it all translates to work. People see work-life balance, but work and life, and what you're saying, it's the same process of building a healthy personal life is building a healthy business life.
Absolutely.
It's the same.
It's healthy relationships.
Yeah.
And that there's no difference in the workplace. And if we have healthy relationships, healthy culture,
Yeah.
it's a pretty good combo, I think.
Yeah.
And this is an important conversation.
So thank you both for being on. So
Thank
I want to
you.
end
Thank
by
you.
saying if they want to, let's just say there's a business owner out there that's like, wow, okay, I need to talk to these two. How do they find you?
Easiest way would be for our website, which is creativenwa.com.
All right, Creative NW. And so once they go there, they can click on call us or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, contact us.
Contact
and
us.
It will come to our email.
There's
And
information there.
we're happy to connect.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.